So we're here today for a very special panel discussion with respect to guns, weapons, and violence in our community, especially dealing with our youth. So I'm going to kick things off, and then we're going to hear from our chief, and then most importantly, a panel of experts, including a student, who's going to help us sort through this issue. Now, we know all over the country, social media is being used by all of us, including our children. Folks know I have 2 kids in public school, and they're now getting to the age where they're involved in social media. And so this is something that hits so many people right at home. It's something that we often deal with literally every day when we come home and talk to our kids, or we try and talk to them, but we can't get them off social media to actually talk to them. So as a parent, I understand this, but as my kids get older, I also understand the dangers that are out there. And so we want to educate folks and highlight some of the tools and resources that are available to parents and to kids in terms of what you can do and how you can understand what's actually happening out there in our community and online. So a couple of examples that I'll share with you. Number one, our Albuquerque Police Department and our Community Safety Department is trying to work with schools themselves. So whether it's Trisco out on the west side, or it's our student-based violence intervention at West Mesa, we do have some programs in the schools to work on this, but it's not nearly enough, which is why we're sharing this with the public today. So a couple of examples of things that we want to really work on in our community to make our kids safe. One, of course, is just understanding what social media is actually doing and what the discussion is actually about. So for example, there are all sorts of different code words and loaded terms that people use that sort of are references to either drugs or guns. So we're going to explain some of these to you, but if you see some of these coded words or emojis and so forth on your kid's X feed, you know that discussion, that chain, what it's actually about, because it's coded so that you don't actually know what it's about, but it's usually about either guns or drugs. So that's sort of one issue. But another issue is the fact that there's new apps like Telegram, which is actually encrypted. These are primarily used to trade and buy and sell weapons. So that alone, just if you see that app on a phone, that's a discussion that we've got to be able to have both in the home, but also with the student. Now, there's other examples too where we have these social meetups, which is common. We're all in high school at some point. We understand to a certain degree the concept of high school partying. But what's happening now is there's a particular type of meetup that kids will have, often actually downtown in parking garages. And it's a combination of alcohol, maybe some drugs here and there, but then there's also a firearm involved. And then kids are taking these pictures on TikTok and the short videos, and they're posing with these weapons. But of course, what happens just a few minutes or 30 minutes later, people become inebriated, there's fights, and there's already a loaded firearm, and then there's a loss of life. This is what's been happening in our Albuquerque downtown. So understanding also the environment that your child is going into and teaching them and explaining to them, it is not worth any TikTok video or number of likes just to pose with a firearm because of what might happen right after you're done shooting that or who you give the firearm to next. All of these are very dangerous situations, and they're all things we've got to work on as a community. So with more on this, our Chief of Police, Harold Medina.
Hello, Albuquerque. This is Harold Medina, Chief of Police. A couple things that I just really want to emphasize before we turn this over to the panel is we want to educate parents. We want to make sure parents have all the tools in their tool chest to help ensure that their kids are safe and that they have the information that could be the difference between life and death or their children going down the wrong path. There are 2 big things that I've seen over the past several years as Chief of Police, and those 2 big things are firearms in the hands of our youth and how are they getting them, and how they change lives quickly, and how a young person's bad decision at the moment is going to follow them the rest of their life. And one of the things we do know is, and Commander Hartsock will be talking about this, is the internet has been the place to go for kids to get firearms on some of these apps. And he's going to give you information on how you could be proactive and monitor and look for certain key things to ensure that your kids don't get firearms. But it's not only firearms. Like Mayor said, there's drugs. There's a lot of different items being offered on the internet that are not good for our children's health and not going to lead to productive futures. The other way Kyle wants us to be aware of is a lot of the fights that we're seeing start over the internet. In the past, I had 2 gangs, one on the east side of the city, one on the west side of the city. a gang member would talk negative about one of the other rival gang members, the other gang didn't even know it. It became word of mouth weeks later when they would hear it. But in today's social media world, they're able to criticize a fellow gang member. They're able to post that on their social media, and it instantly causes a feud, and kids love to tell others where they're partying. And that's where we bring two colliding groups together, where parents could be very in tune, monitor what their kids are saying, and know where their kids are going if they know the tools that they could use. So this is about teaching our parents on how they could be better at monitoring their children and making sure their children are making safe decisions. And with that, we're going to turn it over to the panel, and thank you for your time this afternoon.
All right, for everybody who's joining us today, I am your moderator today. My name is Francesca Perdue. I work with the Albuquerque Police Department. I will be off camera for the remainder of this event, but I would like to go ahead and jump into introducing our panelists. Today we have Commander Kyle Hartsock, who is with the Albuquerque Police Department, Deputy Director of VPI, Jasmine Desiderio, Dean of Students at Atrisco Heritage High School, Jessica Mallerby, and a student, our special guest today. She goes by Minnie. She is a junior at Atrisco Heritage. Before we jump into our panelists, I would just like to remind our viewers that there is an option to submit questions for the duration of this event. You can just go down to your search bar here in the Zoom and submit a question through the Q&A section, and we will actually do a Q&A session at the end of this and have our panelists answer those questions in real time. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Commander Hartsock to open it up. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching. My name is Commander Kyle Hartsock, and I am the commander of our Criminal Investigations Division. So a lot of the department's detectives who investigate violent crimes and sexual assaults and other things all work in my area. But for several years as a detective and all the way through as a commander, I have been looking and studying how social media is used in crimes and how cell phones are used in crimes. And like the chief pointed out correctly, everyone has a cell phone, and really everyone has a smartphone. And what a smartphone is it's a computer in your pocket that nowadays can do more and do it quicker than most of the computers that maybe a lot of the parents watching right now grew up with. But social media has now become to the point that out of the near 90 plus homicides we investigated last year, social media was a player in more than 95% of those cases. It had some role or function in communication, in locations, in meetups, in sharing photos and videos, either before the murder happened, during the murder, or after the murder. So much so that our department 3 years ago created a digital intelligence team that now just work 40 hours a week plus. I have 10 of these examiners just helping detectives go through all of the social media and phone information on our murder cases and our most violent crime cases. Having a team like this has helped us really clearly see the trends and what we want you to look out for as a parent. Parents out there are all familiar with this app, right? Facebook. Some of you are probably familiar with MySpace, but they died a long time ago. You had your top 8 friends and you played music in the background. It was terrible. But then Facebook came along, and Facebook is still the most used social media app in the world. It is. Even if you might not use it, it is still the most popular social media app that exists. Now, a lot of teenagers we might talk to, and I'm curious if Minnie has a Facebook, a lot of teenagers tell me Facebook's for my parents.
Yeah.
And she agrees, yes. And they might make one eventually, but they don't really maybe use it a whole lot. Do you have a Facebook?
I do, but I only use it to see what my mom posts of me.
Okay, you want to see what you want to make sure your mom's posting a good photo of you. Okay, got it. Yes. Facebook, though, bought a company that we see with lots of teenagers, which is Instagram. Do you have Instagram?
Yes.
Do you use Instagram a lot more?
Yes, a lot.
Okay. And Instagram is just image sharing primarily. You can't really post anything unless it's an image or a video. And as smartphones came on, and with the generation of kids going through high school right now and young adults, everything has to have a photo or a video attached. It makes it more interactive. These are that the companies want their users to do this. And so we see a big explosion of Instagram with our teenagers, much more than Facebook. But Instagram, for example, just 3 weeks ago was used by 8 juveniles who some were running away from home, some were just out late at night. Maybe their parents knew or they didn't know, but they had a group conversation going on for some time. They met up, they were drinking, and they decided to try to carjack a husband and wife who were waiting in an apartment complex up in the foothills area of Albuquerque. And during the attempted carjacking, the owner of the car shot and killed one of the teenagers. And we charged the 7 rest with armed robbery and conspiracy. They're all sitting in juvie right now, and we could go through, and we have gone through their messages, and we could see this evolution of their group forming. This wasn't just a meetup one night. They had been already meeting up and starting to commit some crimes, and now it just spilled over, and unfortunately one of them lost their life, and the wife of the owner of the car was also shot during this, and thankfully she survived, but she now has to go through that trauma for the rest of her life of being shot while in her own car for doing nothing else but sitting in a parking lot. But social media, and it was Instagram that played a really big role in how they were interacting. The next app that we see a lot is this one. What's this?
That's Snapchat.
Snapchat. Do you have Snapchat?
Yes.
I bet. Teenagers love Snapchat. Snapchat makes their users want to post videos and pictures so much that when you open the app, the first thing it does is open up your camera. It literally encourages and pushes the users, take a picture or a video of what you're doing right now and post it. So we get a lot of in-the-moment type pictures and videos. Instagram might be a little bit more curated, like only my best picture goes here, but Snapchat is a lot of in-the-moments. We have caught drive-by shootings on Snapchat. We see tons of drug dealing that would go on Snapchat. I mean, 2-3 long-minute videos. But there's one thing that Snapchat does and promotes that's different than all the other apps. What does Snapchat do different, Minnie?
Snapchat, your snaps and messages can delete instantly.
They can delete.
Yes.
And the default is they do delete. That if you send someone a message or a picture, as soon as 10 seconds after they open it, it'll wipe itself off the device and be gone forever. And so this gives, the users this confidence that the things I do here won't follow me. So maybe I can be a little bit more reckless. Maybe I can be a little bit more dangerous on here. Or maybe it's harder to track what I do because it's going to delete. Well, that's true and it's not, because they are still tracking what you're doing, and we do get warrant returns all the time where we can still read your messages, we can still watch your videos, and if we can watch it, that means your parents can, your future employers can probably get this stuff. It's not the safe environment that you might think it is. The last app I want to talk about is this one. And a lot of you, I bet, don't know what this app is. Minnie, do you know what this app is?
I don't.
She doesn't. That's great. Minnie's a good egg. This is Telegram. Telegram, I'll tell you parents right now, if your kid has this app, just go ahead and delete it. Just wipe it off their phone and tell them I don't want to see that app again. This is a messaging app, not too much different than like a text messaging app. The difference is this company is based out of a country in Asia who won't respond to U.S. Legal enforcement. They won't ban their users. And this is where in Albuquerque, New Mexico, more than 90% of the illegal gun deals and drug deals right now are occurring on this app. And the users are there because these other companies all clamp down. They've done a better job at the very least. But Telegram is the wild, wild west. They don't discourage their users to do this. They won't give us the records even if we give them a search warrant. I just saw in the news this morning, there's 4 APS students in the past week who brought guns to school. And I'm going to get answers. I don't have them for you now, but I bet when I look into it, I bet all 4 were bought on Telegram. I would bet lunch for this whole panel, all 4 were bought on Telegram. Last year, June 4th, a week after most kids graduated school or school ended, Kylie Silva, who had just graduated from Academy High School, was out with her boyfriend, and they made a deal on Telegram to buy or sell, they call them distros, but they're the marijuana-filled cartridges for e-cigarettes, which amongst a certain population are very popular. And during this deal, these things were illegal for them to purchase or sell. The person on the other side brought a gun, decided to rob them and shot and killed both Kylie and her boyfriend. A week out of high school. This was all done on Telegram. It took us months to finally solve this case, and I'm proud to say just a month ago we did charge the shooter in this case. But this app right now is unregulated. I would say it shouldn't be on your kids' phones at all. On that message though, when I was talking to Minnie and her mom before we came up here, to you parents out there, you should really be able to talk to your teenagers and ask them what app are they using the most. You probably know what it is because you probably look at their phones when they're standing next to you, just like everyone does. You should download that app and you should start using it at least sometimes to communicate with your teenager. You should learn some of the lingo and the language and the emojis and what they mean. It doesn't snow much in Albuquerque, but if you follow certain social media channels, you might see snowflakes all the time, and that means cocaine. It usually indicates this could be a cocaine dealer. If they see a water gun on there, that usually means they're armed themselves, or they could be dealing in guns. Fentanyl is sold widely on social media. When you engage with your kids and say, I'm going to download the app, I'm going to download Snapchat, and every now and then send them some funny snaps, it does a couple things. One, your kid is now aware you know what that app is. They're not ignorant to it. They have to be a little bit more careful because my mom or my dad are here, or my grandparents, my aunties, my uncles, and they're going to probably use it a little bit more responsible. But you should also scroll through and see what other people are posting on there, even if they're not your kids' friends, maybe they are, because your kid is seeing dangerous stuff on social media daily sometimes, or weekly at the very least. Minnie, who we'll meet, I know more in a second, but she sounds like a good egg, a good student. Have you ever seen a drug deal on social media, or somebody advertising drugs?
So there's people on social media that they call themselves plugs, and they'll add you on Snapchat or they'll follow you on Instagram, and they have those emojis like pills or stuff like that, and so like you know that they're drug dealers, or you know those kinds of people.
Right. What about guns? Have you seen guns posted on social media?
Same thing. People will follow you on Instagram, their profile picture's a gun, or you'll see a random story on Snapchat with people posting guns.
So these are the conversations that you should be having with your teenagers about, do you accept this person following you, or why are you following them, and what happens if you see something for sale or you see actual violence take place on social media. Unfortunately, we get bad actors who are videotaping their violent crimes and then posting them. As a kid, what should you do? And the answer is the same as it's always been. You got to go to a trusted adult and tell them what they see. And that might be a parent. I know if you're a parent, you want it to be you. It's not always you. I'm really sorry. But it could be a teacher, a counselor, it could be a dean of students, it could be a school resource officer. It could be just someone in the community that kid trusts, and it's really important they have that person to go and report, hey, I'm really worried my friend is talking about self-harm, or I'm worried about these two kids are having a beef and this could escalate into violence. That's really hard for kids to come out and say that, but as adults, it's our responsibility to make sure we give them what that outlet can look like so we can help them navigate these really complex problems. So I do that with my kids. It's the best advice as a cop and as a parent that I want to pass on to you guys today.
Thank you, Commander Hartsock. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Jasmine. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the program that you oversee and the specifics and how it helps our students.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you, Kyle, for highlighting some of the data and the apps, because we have been seeing a lot of it being utilized in some of the youth violence and cases that we work with. So I currently oversee the violence intervention program. School-based violence intervention program is one of those. The Violence Prevention Intervention Division of ACS has 5 different types of specialty programs that were created to help intervene in the cycles of violence. And the school-based violence intervention program right now currently operates within West Mesa High School and Atrisco High School, as well as RFK Charter School. We've seen great success in the program over the course of 2.5 years. We've received over 100 referrals into the program. And the reason why this has been a success is it was specifically developed to help students who are identified as the highest risk of engaging or falling into the cycles of crime. And what we've done was provide a full-time mentorship on school campus that allows these students who are at higher risk to receive additional support by our intervention specialists during school hours. We do also offer programming outside of school hours as well as off campus. And in the past 2.5 years, we've seen an increase of youth violence, right? And what we've done was try to ensure that our programming was identifying these gaps in providing stabilization for these youth as well as their families when they need it, but also trying to get them out of that cycle of violence by removing some of the elements around why they're driving, what is driving violence. And most of that is gang affiliation, substance abuse, and our intervention specialists work very hard on school campuses to work collaboratively with our administrators on the schools as well as the other Albuquerque Community Safety Department programs, allowing a holistic approach to ensure that we are identifying those needs and addressing them as soon as possible. Commander Hartsock just mentioned that this past week there are students who are identified as having guns on campus, and that just highlights the need of ensuring that these programmings exist, and we're doing more to help the parents as well as the students. What we're trying to do as well is keeping kids connected to jobs or to schools is a healthy habit, right? 1 in 9 students are connected to either school or having a job, and nearly 40% of those students are weakly attached, meaning we need to do better to ensure as a community working collaboratively with the school, the students, parents, families, other community organizations who are vested in this type of prevention and intervention for our youth to work collaboratively to ensure that we're all working together. It's going to take a village, like Commander had mentioned, is we work collaboratively with PD as well as the schools, because we feel like as long as we're working from different approaches to help interact and engage with the students as well as the families, it gives us a better opportunity to ensure that we're connecting them back to community. And it's not about them re-engaging in crime in the future, but it's also about them becoming healthy and contributing members of our community, right? We want to be sure that they're living a healthy life and the best life possible. And what we've seen through social media as well as it's very challenging because we do so much on providing and intervening in some of these violence or cycles of violence just to find out that they have easier access and faster access to engaging in situations that could be harmful to themselves and their families. So social media in and of itself is a great tool for everybody who wants to stay well connected, but it also gives the opportunity for youth to engage in situations or go and meet up and coordinate and participate in things that they shouldn't be, or going and buying drugs and alcohol or guns. But we're here to say that we also want to be sure that there are healthy outlets, that families know, parents have this option as well as schools, that we're here to help and we're vested in ensuring that we're breaking those cycles of violence in our community.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Jessica and Minnie, I actually want to open this up to you, and I think you can give our viewers kind of some insight to what you're actually seeing in the schools. So I'll open that up to Jessica. Can you tell us about maybe, aside from guns and violence, what are other things that you're maybe issuing discipline for in regards to maybe cell phones or social media? How prominent is social media in the school?
Unfortunately, social media is the driving force for a lot of the issues that we have on campus. Other than drugs and guns, we're seeing a lot of bullying, initiating for fights. Our students, when a fight happens, their favorite thing to do is, the first thing they do is they pull out their phones and they put it onto social media. And so, those types of things, then what happens is that they post these fights, then you start seeing kids commenting on these fights, and so instead of the school trying to shut it down through mediations and different types of meetings, providing additional resources and wraparound services, these fights are never getting essentially squashed because of social media, and the kids kind of keeping that fuel going. So I think many can attest, fights that we've had on campus, the first thing is, hey, where's my phone? I've got to make sure I get the best shot.
Yeah, most people pull out their phones and record, and these fights do stem from social media. And because people are they're behind their screens, they don't have to say it to your face, they don't have to start the argument face to face, so they're not afraid to say whatever they want to say. And I think that's a big reason why we have these fights in school.
Absolutely. We're seeing our students' inability to communicate face to face. Like if I look at them, they can't look at me or look at that student in a mediation and express what they're feeling, what their issue is, but they can definitely get behind that screen and say everything that they're feeling. So unfortunately, you can't read the tone.
I know we've talked a lot about guns and violence and fights. What about self-harm? Are there any threats of self-harm that parents should be aware of that maybe kids are using their social media apps for?
I honestly don't think a lot of kids feel comfortable to post it on social media. So like I personally don't see a lot of self-harm stuff on social media.
Okay.
We've gotten some reports where maybe a student will say something on social media. It's generally through Snapchat because then they know their parents can't see it. But you know, when it comes down to that self-harm aspect, they're not really speaking up on social media. It's more so that in person, that cry for help.
Okay. And Jessica, can you speak a little bit to what kind of pushes you as an administrator to reach out to law enforcement? If you can share maybe some instances there where you've had to reach out.
So we're fortunate at Atrisco, we do have a APS police officer just like every other APS high school in Albuquerque. But we're also fortunate that we do have a Bernalillo County Sheriff's Deputy on campus as well because of the location of our school. So anytime we have fights, word of drug deals, drugs being used in the bathroom, or even weapons, we do work very, very closely with APS police to get a handle on it. You know, we pull the kid in, we have our officer, sometimes we'll have our officer present, to just reassure the student that you're not going to get in trouble if you come and you say something. We have posters throughout our school with the see something, say something. So, you know, we stress every time we talk to a kid, whether it be through law enforcement or through administration, we're never, ever, ever going to use your name. We're very good at making sure that nobody knows that it was you that reported it, because we want to make sure everybody feels safe and that they can trust the people that they come to. So it's beneficial having that officer there. He's out around campus, and he assists in quite a few things to help keep our kids safe and comfortable when they're there. So I don't know, have you seen him around campus? He's always around, I feel like.
I don't know exactly who he is, but I know we have a few police officers on campus.
That's good, Minnie. You are right, Commander Hartog. She's a good egg. She doesn't know any of the bad stuff.
All the cops look alike too.
Yeah. Minnie, this question is for you. Can you talk to us a little bit, and maybe you can give us some insight into your friend group or just the students' kind of mindset? How inclined are you to report some of these social media sites or pages? Like, do you feel comfortable going to somebody and saying, hey, there's this page that I'm kind of concerned about, or what would you do? What would be your advice?
I think that most kids don't want to come off as tattletales or get themselves in trouble or have other kids look at them like they don't want to have fun. But I think that if we do encourage to see something, say something, kids can anonymously report these incidents. I think a lot of struggles with APS in general is every time you go to the bathroom, there's kids smoking in the bathroom, just in there in general. So I think that if people feel more comfortable knowing that they are anonymous, that they will report them more. But if it also doesn't directly apply to them, like if these gun threats don't apply to them or their school, they are less likely to say something.
Do you know about being able to report pages on Instagram and on these different applications? I don't know if Commander, if you want to jump on that a little bit about reporting these pages to make sure that somebody knows it's there.
Yeah, I'll say every social media network that's out there, for the most part, of course, except Telegram, has a credible way to report an account or flag a post for either posting something dangerous, or it could be even sexually too explicit, or it's making threats, and those tips work. I used to work child exploitation cases, and somebody could flag a post on Facebook or YouTube, or send an email over Gmail, and those companies would get that report, see, hey, this looks like it's illegal what's happening, and they would make near immediate reports to law enforcement. So we'd get it within sometimes less than an hour. We're getting notified that a user in Albuquerque had posted this thing or shared this contraband image online, and we were taking action. I mean, in one case, it happened around 1 p.m. in the day, and by 5:30 p.m., me and my detectives were breaking a door down in southwest Albuquerque because we thought a 6-year-old was in danger, and rescued the 6-year-old and ended up arresting the subject, who was threatening violent acts against the child earlier that day. So using that feature does work. But Minnie, have you ever explored that feature? Have you seen those options on profiles or posts? I'm curious.
Sometimes people would DM you with just weird people would DM you. So I know that you can go to the top of their page and report it. But I didn't know that it could notify you guys.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of teens know that.
Yep, it totally is connected to 24-hour centers in different parts of the world. Facebook's is in Ireland, by the way, so my phone would ring with an Ireland country code. I'm like, what? And it wasn't a leprechaun. It was some Facebook guy with an Irish accent. But they were telling me about something really dangerous, something immediate, self-harm, or violence against a school or another student would come out. So they actually do work. They're effective.
Jessica, can you expand a little bit more on what parents can expect if you come across something on a phone, or maybe your capabilities as an administrator when you confiscate a phone or look at a phone?
So we actually don't go through cell phones. The way we get our information about what's going on social media is students will bring their phones and openly share it with us, whether it be they screenshot it or it's on an Instagram, on a reel, so they'll bring it to our attention. Administrators, we never go through somebody else's cell phone. We're not allowed to, and if I'm being honest, as an administrator, I'd be very scared to go through teenager phones. So if it gets brought to our attention, we immediately address it with the student depending on what the threat is. So if it's of drugs, one of our very first things is, let's say we get a report from a student and they bring in these pictures and it's showing a student doing a drug deal in the bathroom. We identify who those students are, and then we go to the classroom, we pull the student and their belongings, and we conduct a search, which is written out in the APS student handbook. That will be a search of their belongings, their backpacks, whatever they have on them, and then of their person. So that'll be them emptying their pockets, jackets, things of that sort. Once that search is conducted, if we do find things on that person, that is when a parent is contacted to inform them that we have found these things on their student, and we discuss the disciplinary consequences. If nothing is found on the student, we still contact the parents so that they're informed that we did receive a tip that included pictures that involved their child in conducting some sort of deal on campus. So as a school administrator, our top priority is to make sure that parents know what is going on with their kids.
Minnie, you keep talking about, these profiles that may reach out to you, that may friend request you. What do you do when that happens? Can you kind of walk us through that in your mind, what happens?
I think that most teens, when you get a new friend request or a new follower, they'll click on the profile, see who it is, see if they know them. But if it's suspicious, honestly, I think most people just block them. We're desensitized to the fact that people post guns and sell drugs, or just see it, block them if that's not what you want to take part in.
What message do you have to teens out there when they come across these types of profile? Is there any suggestions you can give, or any kind of message that you just have for them?
If teens are coming across these profiles, I would say to just report them. Don't engage with it. Don't get yourself in trouble, because these kinds of profiles don't seem like they're harmful, but they can lead to these greater instances, like someone getting shot and killed.
Minnie, what do you think? How do you feel on social media as a teen? How do you feel? Do you feel safe?
I personally, I don't know. I don't feel unsafe, But I think that social media is a place like that's judging, and if you don't do this, you'll get judged if you post this. So I think that some teens go through with a lot of stuff because they don't want to feel judged by others.
So it's a different type of peer pressure, would you say?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of peer pressure on social media.
And do you think there's any peer pressure to get involved with these profiles? Do you think that, and I don't know if you can speak to this because you are a good egg, but maybe what you hear around, are there kids who are pressured to feel like they need to accept those friend requests, or they need to go looking for a gun, or they need to go buy those drugs?
If that's the type of friend group you're in or the type of people that you surround yourself with, there's definitely pressure to engage with those profiles. But if you distance yourself from all of that, I don't think that there's pressure to go through with that.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Minnie. We are coming to the 10-minute mark here on this webinar. So I want to go ahead and jump into some questions. We have some that were submitted online. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this first one to Commander Hartsock. Someone asked, what are some risks on social media that most people aren't aware of? I know you kind of started with that, but maybe you can give us the top 3 that maybe people don't know about.
It sounds really common sense, but stop meeting people you don't know that you just met on social media in some like strange place that you don't control, right? These kind of meetups, and they're at parks maybe, and it could be everything from you're buying and selling something that seems innocuous or okay, but when you do it in these places that you're just not familiar with, and you're not really familiar with the other person, you have no idea, one, who you're actually meeting. And we see robbery setups happen all the time where the robber gets there beforehand. They get people hiding in bushes, I'm not even kidding, because they know they're going to rob you the second you show up. All of our police stations, for example, are set up to do, kind of eBay, Craigslist, like meetups to sell things so that you can do it in a public parking lot. Or work harder to verify, is this person real that you're talking to? Years ago, when I had stepkids that were teenagers, I had an undercover Facebook account, and I friended them with my undercover account, and I said, hey, just so you know, for several months, I've been watching all of your social media posts. I know you're really mad about it. It's my undercover cop account. And they're like, oh, well, what's the name on it? And I was like, I'm not gonna tell you. They're like, well, why not? I'm like, just take off everybody you don't actually know, and you'll get rid of me. That's all you gotta do. You don't have to know the name. Stop accepting so many people in and sharing these really personal details with them if you don't actually know them.
The next question, probably for Jasmine. You talked a lot about these programs that are offered. If there is somebody who may be at risk or maybe headed down that path, how do they get a referral, or how do they get involved in the violence prevention program?
That's a great question. The violence intervention program is available for anyone. Anyone who is on the path to or currently engaging in violence, we want to be there to assist anybody, especially when we're receiving those referrals. You can go to our ACS website, the Albuquerque Community Safety Department, acs.gov, and there is a link to have emails sent to specific general emails for our programs. We currently have the opioid education and prevention program. We have our violence intervention program, which is typically for adults and those who meet our criteria on how we're going to be engaging with them through mentorship and recovery or re-entry. We also have our school-based violence intervention program that we just talked about today, and we have a CORA, community-oriented response and assistance groups, who have specialties in responding to high acuity calls with high trauma.
There's another question in here. A couple people actually asked this, and they want to know how they can view this later at a later time or share it with students. And so for those of you who are still logged on, this will be it's being recorded live right now, and the recording will be posted to our website, and we will share on our social media pages. Go follow our social media pages, and you can actually learn a lot about what they're talking about here. But the link to that website will be shared later today. As we close, I'm going to go through the panelists, and maybe if you can gather your thoughts on what your final message to our viewers and our participants might be. Maybe it's an urge of caution or a message to specifically parents, guardians, maybe it's to teachers, maybe it's to students. What is your message about social media and the crime that we're seeing? And I'll go ahead and start with Commander Hartsock on that.
Beyond the crimes I already talked about, I think there's two more things that we didn't really touch all the way I want to touch on now. One, and Minnie brought it up, you should have a healthy block list, and you should tell your kids they should block more people than they probably think on social media. It's a great feature. It doesn't get used enough. Block them. If you're tired of seeing their crap or you think it's dangerous, stop being nosy, just block them. Have a healthy block list. It's a great feature. And two, we didn't talk about it today, but artificial intelligence, its ability, AI, to make fake profiles, to generate fake images, which includes transposing nude images onto teenagers' faces and things like this, it's a real thing. It's getting turned into a crime in other states around the country. I think it'll become a law here eventually, but this is devastating to students, to teachers. So also, as a parent, you should explore what the capabilities of AI are, and you should absolutely talk to your kids about it. They might be just doing it to help write a paper, but there could be malfeasance and other really dangerous, life-changing things that could affect their day-to-day lives on there. So AI it's real, it's here, learn about it.
Real quick, before we go over to Jasmine, we got another question, and I think, Minnie, you'd be the best to answer this. An anonymous attendee asked or said this: we all know that middle school years can be especially rough for kids on a social level, particularly girls. What advice would you give to 6th grade girls who are navigating this time?
Some advice I would give to 6th grade girls who are navigating middle school is to just be yourself. Don't worry about what other people think, because we're all growing up, we're all going through certain situations that we don't talk about. So just take the time to just be yourself. Don't worry about other people's opinions, because at the end of the day, everything you do is for you, and your future is the only thing that matters.
Can you talk about maybe a personal time for you that maybe you went through as a 6th grade girl, or maybe something that you overcame that maybe might help this viewer?
I would say for me, in 7th grade, I actually went through a bullying situation on social media, and I actually had a hashtag that was cancel Minnie 2020, and I think that it actually helped me grow as a person. So just maybe whatever you're going through, really take that and use it to grow and learn from it, because it will get better.
Awesome. I don't know who might be able to answer this. Maybe Jessica, you have some input. The question is there a push to bar phones in schools altogether at high-risk schools so the behavior is at least mitigated?
There is a huge push. I do know it's in the legislature, I believe, to push banning phones in schools. It's something I would support as a former educator and as an administrator. Phones are just a massive distraction to our students in the classrooms. And so I know APS is working hard. It is back in the student handbook that schools are not to have phones when students are in the classrooms. And then I know each school has kind of their own policy as to how they handle it. But as an administrator, I'm a huge advocate for no phones in the schools, and I am a parent as well to 1 middle school and 2 high schoolers. And if in the 90s when I was growing up, if our parents can get a hold of us at the school, there's phones in every classroom, every office. If you need to get a hold of your student, you can call the school and we will locate your student so that you can get that important message. So I think we need to do something about making sure these kids don't have their phones on them.
I'm sure it'd help with them focusing too, right?
100%.
I'm going to go ahead and go back to the closing message. Jasmine, what's your closing message to our participants?
I would say stay vigilant, right? For parents out there, please know the warning signs of suicide, substance abuse disorder, identifying when escalating behavior or aggressive behavior starts to get more out of hand and more frequent. Early intervention is important, right? Identifying these early on will have a positive impact, an immediate impact on some of their behaviors and getting them back on the right path, and also ensuring that we are able to connect the student, the youth, and their families to resources and services within the community that are readily available for you.
Jessica?
I've been pondering on this. I think my big message is just as a parent, know what your kid is doing. Don't be shy about going through their phones. I think that's important because it's going to help you build your relationship with your kids, to be able to have those conversations around the dinner table. As an educator and as an administrator, I would say parents, don't be shy about bringing it to our attention. Oftentimes when I meet with parents, they knew that something was going on and their kid begged them, don't tell the school, don't tell the school, I'll handle it myself. When in fact, had the parent just made that simple phone call and said, hey, this is the situation that my student is having, a fight could have been prevented, a drug deal could have been prevented. If you know somebody in our school has, they're bringing a gun to school, we can act fast to keep all of our students safe, because at the end of the day, our job is to educate them, and what we want them to do is when they step foot on our campuses, we want them to feel safe, and we want you to trust us that we're doing everything we can to keep your students safe.
So, Minnie, before I go to you, Commander Hartsock, can you talk a little bit real quick about dual profiles and what you see with that, where kids might have multiple profiles on one?
Oh, I would bet most teenagers have two profiles. One's for mom and dad and grandma, and the other one is for their friends. Not everyone does this, but it's a great, neat trick to think your kid's all great and just posting their grades for you, but they might have a second one. Just one, no, it happens too. It's pretty normal. Most of you parents out there, I'm pretty sure your parents don't actually know everything you did as a teenager. It shouldn't surprise you that your kids don't want you to know everything. It's probably a little bit healthy that there's some boundaries right there. Mm-hmm. But again, talk to them about it. I follow my kids on social media, but I also know they restrict what stories I can see, and I'm fine with it. I get to interact with them in real life. I can generally tell if something's off if you have a good relationship with them. Let them have some privacy. Let them have some inside jokes. You should definitely be aware of it, but I need them to trust me more than I need to police every single thing they do on social media. So I think that's important too.
Minnie, we'll go to you for your closing message.
Okay, so mostly for teenagers, I would just say be smart about where you're posting. Don't let a simple mistake now affect you the rest of your life. And just don't be afraid to report any suspicious behavior that you see, because at the end of the day, you could be saving someone's life.
Awesome. It's very powerful. I would like to just say thank you to all of our panelists today. Thank you for taking the time to get out some education. And Minnie, thank you for sharing it. I'm sure that's probably a little nerve-wracking to go out there and sit on this panel. So thank you for being here with us today. We hope that we got out some kind of information that maybe parents didn't know. And this will be posted and recorded to our website, and it'll also be shared to all of our social media platforms. So thank you.